Hopefully that wasn't too loud with those chimes. I'm John Ray, and today I had a really great conversation on another YouTube channel, but we delved into some topics that I don't frequently speak about, and I definitely believe and am confident in the way that I responded, and I'm glad that I was able to talk about some of these things. But anytime I delve into a new layer of authenticity or sharing a part of me that maybe I don't often share with people, a lot of the fears of that new expansion start to come online. And after that conversation, even though I felt really uplifted about the conversation itself, I started to pinpoint all of these telepathic projections. And these telepathic projections are when we start to play out scenarios where we think, oh, if this person saw that, they would project this onto me. Or if this person saw it, they would project this onto me. And then we create an anxiety and a fear about a scenario that hasn't even happened. And when that happens to me, what I like to do is just a little bit of a mindfulness meditation. And I'm just going to kind of guide myself through that. And if you'd like to follow along, this has been really valuable in my self exploration of how able and willing I am to authentically express who and what I am at any given moment in time. And over the years, as I've written blog posts and Facebook posts and Instagram posts and posted content on YouTube, there's always kind of a stretch zone, right? Where you're sharing something new or something that you haven't quite worked out yet. And there's a fear that it will be perceived in the wrong way. And that's a totally natural fear. And when that happens, what I like to do is instead of spinning over it in my head by letting all of those scenarios and telepathic projections continue to play themselves out, I instead identify where does that fear, that worry, that anxiety live in my body as sensation. And so if you've done any of my other meditations, you know that what we're looking for in the body is the most present and active sensation that exists. And then our job is simply to notice that and be curious about that sensation and to allow that sensation to fully present and express itself. And what will happen is, as we allow for that expression to complete, that energy will start to move or transmute or dissolve. And it goes back into creative potential that we can then direct towards the things that we want to create in our life. So I'll stop talking now and just kind of take a deep breath. And what I'm doing is just kind of scanning my body right now. And right now, I feel a lot of energy kind of in my stomach and my solar plexus, where that fear of what other people are going to think of me is playing itself out. And a lot of times, the big feelings that we have are, or the sensations that come up when we play out an imagined scenario in our mind, it's a law of attraction event. You know, our thoughts are attracted to us. Our brains are satellite dishes pulling thoughts in, and I firmly believe that the law of attraction is designed to poke at us and show us where there is trapped trauma in our nervous system and energy field that's ready for release. And all we have to do to release that trauma is sit with it, notice it. A lot of times we may not have had the emotional capacity or the tools to fully experience some scenario in our life, or maybe we were just overstimulated, had had too much coffee, drugs, alcohol. Can all be things that prevent us from fully processing our experience. And so, what reality will do is just give us events that are designed to show us where that trapped trauma lives, and then we just feel our feelings about how and where that sensation lives in our body. So as I tune into my body, I'm just going to be extra curious about the sensations and energy that are moving through my stomach right now, my solar plexus, and just a little bit in my heart. And I'm going to sit and notice that. Your sensations may be something totally different, and that's okay. Just be curious about where they want to move and notice what they want to do. This process isn't about figuring out why they're there or trying to get those big feelings to go away. It's really about building out the space for that energy to have room to express however it needs to express. And we just want to acknowledge that expression without judgment and allow it to happen. And one thing you may notice is that as you're present with these sensations in the body, the energy might start to disperse into other areas. And don't be alarmed by that. That's the energy opening up the emotional channels again and dispersing it in a way where you're more holistically having your experience instead of having the energy flow blocked. Whatever you're feeling, we just want to notice it. We want to develop a healthy curiosity for what's happening in our bodies. And we want to allow and build space for any sensation that shows up. Sometimes I'll visualize a flower opening in the area that has the most intense sensation, or a candle flame burning. And that just helps me unclench a little bit. Just notice if you're resisting anything. And if thoughts come in, just allow them to be there. And notice how you feel about the thoughts that came in. And then move your attention towards that sensation in the body. A lot of times we think we're feeling, but we're actually just thinking about feeling. We're having a mental version of the feeling, and we're not actually experiencing the energy of it as emotion, as sensation in our body. And so when we have any kind of fear or worry or doubt that comes online because of any thought, imagined or real, we want to just notice, where does that thought inspire sensation in our body? And then we just lend our attention. And our attention is kind of like a lightsaber or a laser that helps break up any dense or compacted energy that might be there, clogging up our system. In many ways, our attention is like Drano in the pipes of our nervous system. It's clearing out all the gunk. And all we have to do is notice what's happening in our body at any given moment in time and put our attention on the sensations that are there. Right now, I'm having a lot of discomfort and heat in my stomach, solar plexus, and the bottom part of my heart. So I'm just going to notice that. And if a thought comes in, that's okay. Allow it to be there. And just turn your attention back to any sensation that's happening in the body. Processing out emotional energy in the body is really just as simple as noticing the feeling without trying to interpret the feeling. And no matter how big the feeling is, if we put our attention on it for long enough without trying to figure it out or judge it or getting it to go, trying to make it go away, it'll eventually subside. And in its place will be a kind of balance or peace. It may not happen right away or even in the first meditation, but over time, the energy of those big feelings will process out and come back into balance. And sometimes thoughts will come in for me, and when they do, I just notice if there's anything I'm feeling about that thought. Because our thoughts are a law of attraction event, looking to show us something about what we can feel. And if we can then move into the sensation that's inspired by whatever thought comes in and move our full attention into the bodily sensation, once we do that, there really aren't that many thoughts. So now some of that energy that was in my heart and stomach is starting to play it out in the top of my head. And so I just let it move wherever it wants to move. And I notice that it's there. And the energy in my head has some pressure to it and is somewhat uncomfortable, but I don't try to get it to go away and I don't try to resist it. I just notice the pressure. And what happens is it ends up opening new channels of energy, and that energy will eventually disperse and move into other areas. But right now, I just notice where the strongest or most intense sensation in my body is. And I give it full permission to be there and to express however it needs to express. And if there's a worst case scenario that I'm afraid of, or I'm afraid somebody is going to respond poorly to something that I've done, then maybe I let some of those scenarios play themselves out in my mind just as a way to trigger and inspire the emotion that's ready to release. And then I don't resist how I feel about that scenario. I let the feeling express fully. And as I sit with it, the scenario I was afraid of starts to feel more and more distant. And I become more and more present with whatever sensations are happening in my body right now. And I just unclench my muscles and let that sensation play itself out and disperse throughout my body. My meditation coach used to talk about it's kind of like drinking a cup of warm tea. You can feel the heat dissipating and moving through your whole body. And when we pierce some of these big feelings and emotions with the light of our consciousness or our attention, it often does feel like there's a heat moving through our body. And so we just want to notice what energy or sensation wants to express in the body right now. And then we notice it. And sometimes there might be a tendency for the mind to say, okay, that's enough. We don't need to do anything else. But the body will tell us when it's fully processed. And what that looks and feels like is that there's no longer any discomfortable or uncomfortable energy expressing in the body. So we just sit and build space for that energy to get as big as it needs to be so that it can burn itself out. and transmute itself back into creative potential. I'm noticing the pressure in my head, some energy in my stomach and solar plexus, and just the interplay between those two areas. And learning to sit like this in silence and stillness for me has been one of the most clarifying practices that I've ever learned. Because if we can learn to sit with whatever energy or emotions or sensations want to express in our body, then we can experience life more fully and wholly processed. And so we're not perceiving life through filters and lenses of trauma. Instead, we're seeing clearly, and we have access to a wider decision space, which means more opportunities and the courage to choose those opportunities. Anytime we're confused or seeking clarity, the opportunity is to sit with ourselves and allow whatever sensation needs to come up or wants to express in the body to present itself fully. And our job is just to be curious about where it wants to move, how long it wants to be there, at what level of intensity, and when it's no longer there. You can open this body consciousness more and more just by taking the time to pay attention and lend your attention to your body. Notice your toes. And as you notice parts of your body over a long enough period of time, you'll start to be able to actually feel the energy of your attention and the light of your consciousness moving to each part of the body. And it's that light that helps us break up some of the energy blockages. Feel your feet. If there's noise ever outside of where you're sitting, just bring that into the meditation. Feel how you feel about people making noise in the other room or noises outside. We live in a vibrational universe, and The law of attraction is always going to bring us the experiences designed to trigger and release the trauma that's trapped in our body and no longer serving us. And so anything that happens to us in meditation is a part of the meditation. And so we just feel however we feel about it. Notice your feet, your calves, your shins, your knees, your thighs. If you need to burp, just let some of that energy flow. Notice your pelvis, your butt, your stomach, your lower back, upper back, shoulders, chest, arms. Notice your hands. Notice your neck, your face, your forehead, the back of your head, and the top of your head. Where is there a persistent sensation? Put your energy there. Put your attention there. Be curious about any feeling or sensation that's happening in your body until you feel like you've found a balance point and are no longer having fear, anxiety, or worry. And you want to be able to think about the thing that you were afraid of or anxious about. Bring it into your mind and just see if there's any other feelings there that want to express. And sit with those feelings. Notice those sensations until they're no longer there. So let's just sit in silence, lending our attention to whatever feeling, emotion, energy, or sensation feels most active in our body. If there's a particular person that you're afraid will judge you, allow whatever scenario you're afraid about to play itself out in your mind's eye and use that to inspire any trapped energy that it's attempting to release. Our thoughts are always serving us in this way. They're designed to show us what we're ready to feel. and what's ready to release. And so, if we can play out the scenario that we're avoiding or that we're afraid might happen, we can feel those feelings and those emotions in their more subtle state without necessarily having to actually live the experience. There's a huge benefit to proactively doing this work and feeling through the feelings about events that we're imagining. Because worry is just a kind of manifestation. It's our energy calling a circumstance or the decisions that would lead to a circumstance closer. And when we can feel through those imagined events as they exist in our mind in their more subtle, less dense state, we can work through the feelings and emotions that that imagined event is there to release, and then move into a different kind of manifestation process, redirecting that trapped energy towards the scenarios that we prefer, or perhaps even the scenario we were worried about, but now with a newfound level of clarity, confidence, and courage. So, right now, there's a couple people in my life that come to mind. And when I think about some of the videos and things that I've put out recently, it feels uncomfortable to think about what they might think about my honest expression. And so I just let what I think the worst case scenario might be play itself out in my mind. And I feel the discomfort of what it would be like to have that projection come at me in that way. And because it's a thought that's coming to me right now, that's a truth. And so by feeling the feelings that the thought or the imagined experience inspires or triggers within me, I can deal and process out the emotional energy that caused the thought in the first place. So that energy for me is playing itself out in my chest and a little bit in my solar plexus. So I just sit and notice that it's there. And I do this in silence without any music because that allows me to better feel into the nuance and subtlety of some of the emotions and energy ready to release. Noticing each one as it presents and allowing it to be there until it isn't. And anytime a big feeling comes up, this is the meditation I do. I just notice it and I stay curious and non resistant to what's happening in my body. I create space for the energies and emotions that are ready to express to come to the surface and express. And if my mind tells me that's enough, you did your meditation, we're done, just check in with your body. You get to decide when you're done. The monkey mind will want to end it before you may be ready. For me, I sit like this until the uncomfortable energy or feelings or bigness or intensity of those feelings in my body is no longer present, especially if I've got the time like I do tonight. If I only have 5 or 10 minutes, then I set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes. But if I have the time like I do now, I just notice what's happening in my body until all uncomfortable feelings have balanced themselves out and I feel at peace. But I don't beat myself up if the feelings don't feel like moving. If they just want to stay where they are, or if it feels like they're never going to go away, I let that be okay. Or I feel my feelings about that thought. How would I feel if this discomfort never went away? Sometimes that's the layer of the onion that needs to be felt and peeled back first before we can deal with some of the underlying energy. As you do this type of mindfulness meditation more and more, you'll become more nuanced at discovering the flavors of belief and emotion, how you really feel in each moment, and about the thoughts that come in. But feeling our feelings in this way as energy, emotional energy, and not needing to label or interpret why that energy is there. That's what's been powerful about this practice for me. We process out the emotions in a stage that precedes language or intellect. We deal with it at the emotional energy level. And that energy, that electrical nature of what we're feeling into right now, precedes even the hormones that make up some of our emotions or lack thereof. And so the more that we tune into this subtle energy layer, the more that everything that follows, the hormones, the physicality of our body, our thoughts, they're all taking their cue from this energetic layer. And so we just notice what sensation in our body wants to present, what part of our body has been holding that emotional energy in a tight package, just waiting for us to untie the bow and unwrap it so that it can present in our body, express fully, and transmute itself back into creative potential. Let's sit with whatever sensation feels most present in the body right now and just notice it. And sometimes when we're sitting like this, we might get up in our head or into a thought, and that's okay. If we find ourselves thinking about something, we just ask our body, how does it feel about that thought? And then we turn our attention back to whatever the most prominent sensation in the body is. And we use the light of our consciousness, our attention, to explore and notice that sensation. without any resistance, no judgment or interpretation, simply noticing the sensation. The sensation for me is in my chest right now. So that's where I put my attention. And I just see, what does that energy in my chest want to do? In this way, I become witness to myself. And I'm not so trapped in compulsive knee jerk reactions because I've built space between I am and my behavior. And when there's space between those two things, we open up our decision space and give ourselves access to more opportunity. And it all starts by just noticing the sensations and the big feelings or little feelings happening in our body and being with those. Not trying to get them to go away, just allowing them to be there. If you need to and you feel it would be helpful, just take a deep breath into whatever sensation you're noticing. And do that as often as you need to build out some space so that the emotional energy there feels free to move however it needs to move. If it doesn't feel like it's moving, then you can keep lending your attention to it. Or if you want to, you can try tapping in and around where the sensation is. And just notice how that feels. See if it breaks up any of that energy. But let it be okay if it doesn't. Because the energy may just need to express in the way it's expressing right now. The layer of the onion that might be there Could be the feelings that we have that that feeling needs to go away. And that feeling is kind of like a child. It's sad and hurt when we want it to go away. And so instead, we just let it be there and put on a show for us. And we're just curious about what energy and sensations show up and where they want to move in our body. And if you want to visualize a flower opening, its petals expanding in the area where the energy or sensation in your body is at, allow that vibrational or visualization of a rose opening its petals to help that area of your body at the physical and emotional level just relax and unclench a little bit. And then we'll just sit with that sensation wherever it is in your body in silence for a bit. And just check in with yourself. Are you still worried about what people will think about you? Is there still a conversation or some image, thought, or scenario that's playing itself out in your mind that makes you uncomfortable? If so, use that thought as a way to further inspire the expression of whatever emotional energy or sensation wants to play itself out. The manifestation that I tend to experience when I sit with my feelings long enough is that those scenarios that were bothersome to me when I came into the meditation, once the emotional energy has fully passed through my system and transmuted itself, those scenarios just don't bother me anymore. There's no longer any emotional charge. And so if you think about someone or some group of people judging you for something you've said or done, or you feel remorse or regret for something that you've done, or worry that you'll be found out, those are all feelings that are appropriate and ready to release if you're willing to allow them to express. We notice each of those feelings as temporary discomfort because no feeling lasts forever. And if we sit and notice it with the light of our consciousness, our attention, for a long enough period of time and consistently over enough time, we'll find that that traumatic energy, those things that trigger us, just aren't as potent in our life anymore. But notice where the energy wants to move in your body. When I started, I had a lot of energy in my stomach, my solar plexus. Then it moved up into my heart. Now, almost all of the energy and pressure is in the crown of my head, the top part of my head. And so I just notice it there now and let it play out however it wants to. There's a little bit of interplay from the energy in my crown to my heart and back. And I just notice that. If there's any feeling that this feeling or sensation will never go away, then that's the feeling to feel. We accept the premise as true temporarily for the meditation. What if that feeling never did go away? How would you feel about that? Feel through that first and release some of that resistance. And then when you can find a balance point in the statement, maybe it'll never go away. Once that layer of resistance to that idea has been fully felt through, we can get into the next layer of the onion. And even if any thoughts come in, just see how you feel about those thoughts and move your attention back down into your body on whatever sensation is present in the body. And if you feel balanced, then just bask in that balance for a little bit. I'm still feeling just a little bit of energy in my chest. So I just keep sitting with it and noticing how it wants to move from my chest to my belly and back up to my chest. Wherever the sensation is in your body, just put your attention there and notice it without judgment, without resistance to it, without needing to interpret it or make it mean something. Just notice whatever sensations happening in your body as energy. was a little loud, but that's our 1 hour mark. So, how are you feeling? If there's still some energy present in the body, then just acknowledge that. And if you have the time, maybe just start this over and continue to sit with it and build out that space. Or maybe you don't need the background track. You can just keep sitting on your own. Regardless, I appreciate you being here and sharing this time. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.